Hello et bienvenue. We are the creative committee for the Canadian Women's Brass Collective. On est super contente de vous offrir quelques présentations spéciales.
We are professional musicians who have joined forces to celebrate our mutual love and commitment to the world of brass.
We are performers, educators, researchers, and conductors.
We are soloists, members of orchestras, chamber groups, military bands, new music, and early music ensembles.
Our aim is to raise awareness of gender diversity, to foster positive attitudes, and to provide inspiration and role models for the next generation.
In 2019, we met for our first conference, That's What She Said, a week of masterclasses, workshops, roundtable discussions, an excerpt competition, and of course, concerts.
You can check out videos from That's What She Said and past online events on our YouTube channel.
Plus, join our Facebook or Instagram to find out about our upcoming events.
Nous sommes fiers de partager nos idées avec vous aujourd'hui.
Would love to hear from you. Please comment or ask questions in the chat on any of our platforms, and we'll do our best to answer them all.
We are working on future online events, so send us any topics or suggestions that you would like us to cover. All ideas are welcome.
Thanks for joining us.
We are the Canadian Women's Brass Collective.
Hi, welcome everyone. This is our April 25th Canadian Women's Brass Collective event. Thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to present to you today with 4 great euphonium players. So let's begin with a land acknowledgement. Today, I am speaking to you from Toronto, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We would like to recognize and express our gratitude to the Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists. And we are so grateful for the opportunity to make music and share on this traditional land. Today, we are collectively presenting from Montreal, Thunder Bay, Greater Toronto Area, Mississauga, Winnipeg, and Surrey, BC. While we meet on a virtual platform, we invite everyone who is joining us today from all locations across Turtle Island to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples on whose traditional territories we live and work. Now, for today's big event, Session 1, Revitalize Your Practice Session. I'd like to turn this segment over to Carina Lam, and I'll leave it her to introduce all these amazing euphonium players. So grab your instruments and get ready to be inspired. Over to you, Carina.
Thank you so much, Jessie. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is my privilege to introduce or start the day off with a masterclass led by some of my awesome euphonium colleagues. So we'll just do a quick roundtable introduction. Since I guess I'll go first. I'm Carina. I'm part of the Canadian Women's Brass Collective Committee, also a euphonium player based in the Toronto area. Denise?
Hi, I'm Denise. I'm also a euphonium player based in the Toronto area, and I'm currently in my second year of the PhD program at U of T for music education.
Melissa?
Hello, my name is Melissa Sumpton. I'm in Surrey. I'm currently in Surrey, BC. I'm a music teacher out in Surrey. I teach high school music, concert band, and jazz band. I'm also part of the 15th Field Band here in Vancouver. Thank you.
And last but not least, Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a euphonium player as well, like everyone else, and I'm currently based out of Montreal, and I work right now as a musician at the Musique 6e Bataillon Royal 22e Régiment in Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec.
So I guess what we're going to do today is the four of us, we've prepared a really cool 1 hour long masterclass where we're literally just sharing individually our top picks for what we do in our practice sessions. And we'll start with Claire, who's going to talk about breathing, exercises, and mindset and things like that. So I'll leave it with you. Over to you, Claire.
All right, so yeah, as Carina said, I'm gonna start this session by talking about some yoga-related breathing exercises and just how it can be beneficial to your practice and performance. So yoga has many positive effects such as relaxation, mindfulness, calmness, and I find that doing even 10 minutes each morning is extremely beneficial. It's a great way to begin each day in a calm way, and after a while, you learn to kind of carry this mindset onto other activities throughout your day, such as practicing an instrument. So I'm going to do just a couple of very basic breathing exercises that you can do before your practice sessions or performances, or really at any other time during the day that you just feel like you need a minute to relax. So the first one we're going to do is just going to be 4 beats in, 4 beats out, breathing in and out through the nose, which is obviously not the way that you're going to breathe when you're playing your instrument, but it's more just for relaxation and getting more centered before you begin. During this exercise, if you're doing it at home, you can also even close your eyes and just think about what you'd like to accomplish during your practice session or your performance. So I'm going to put a metronome on just for the sake of keeping us together, but if you're doing it on your own later on, you can just count for yourself. So I'll put the metronome, we'll have 4 beats for nothing, and then it'll be 4 in, 4 out through the nose, and we'll just do that a couple times. 2, 3, 4. And when you're doing this at home, you can keep doing it as long as you feel that you need to during that day. The next we're going to do 4 in, and then we're through the nose still, and we're going to exhale through the mouth, but this time as if you're sighing. So when you do this sighing exhale, I want you to imagine that you're taking all of the tension that you have in your body and just releasing it with your breath. For now, we're still going to do 4 counts for each, just for this of keeping us together, but when you're doing it later on at home, you don't need to really count for the sigh part of this. So it'll be the same thing, 4 beats in through the nose, and then sigh through the mouth, 4 beats, and I will give you 4 beats for nothing again. 2, 3, 4. All right, and then the last one is going to be 4 beats in through the mouth and out through the mouth. This is going to be the closest to how you're going to be breathing when you're actually playing your instrument. So when you're breathing in, just think of focus, and breathing out, still imagine that you're eliminating your tension while you're exhaling. So same thing, 4 in, 4 out, 4 beats for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So yeah, those 3 exercises, you can repeat them as many times as you want before your practice session. One last tip is to incorporate this into your practice by whenever you have the chance, take as long to breathe as possible. So for example, you have a measure of rest, take the full measure to do a slow, controlled, calming, relaxing inhale. And I'm just going to quickly recommend 2 resources if you'd like to explore these topics a little bit farther. So where I live, we haven't been able to do yoga classes in person for the past year, so I've been following a YouTube channel called Yoga with Cassandra. She's also Canadian, based out of Ottawa, and she has tons of different lengths and styles of classes on her channel, and it's all free on YouTube. And I'd also like to recommend this book called Effortless Mastery by Werner. This is more about mindfulness and affirmations while you're playing and performing, and it's a really great book to perform more mindfully. So that's it for the breathing section. So I think that Denise will be up next.
Thanks, Claire, for that. Helped me open up a little bit before my session. So what I'm going to discuss today is a little bit about different types of practice sessions. So what I first want to emphasize is that practice sessions will look different for everyone. And if your session doesn't look like mine or like Carina's or like Melissa's, I don't want you to feel discouraged because it took us a while. It took me, I know, for years to develop practice routines that worked for myself. And we have to remember that accessibility is also a thing we have to think about. And if you feel like you can't do this right now, we still have the tools for maybe you can incorporate in the future. So first, I want to discuss, what are we warming up for? Are we preparing for a long session in a practice room for an hour or two? Are we preparing for a long rehearsal that's going to, be choppy? Are we preparing for a brass band rehearsal or a chamber music rehearsal or a concert band rehearsal, marching band, all those different types of playing? Or are we preparing for a gig where we want to really make sure we have a great sound and all of everything in the tank to get us through the entire gig? So first, I'm going to take a look at my practice room routine, which has changed significantly compared to when I was in school versus now that I'm working and back in grad school for a different program. So again, your practice routine will shift throughout your life. It won't be the same thing as you did when you were an undergrad music student or when you're in high school, because life gets in the way sometimes. We have to, remember that and adjust accordingly. So first, in the PDF, I believe that was shared, Carina, is the basic routine out of this book by David Vining called Daily Routines for Euphonium. I have the second edition, and there's also one for students, for more geared towards high school students, that I highly recommend. But this book is fantastic. I have to thank Robert Miller for introducing me to these books. And there's a treble clef and bass clef version there for you to look at, depending on which clef you prefer to read in. And I generally will always start my practice room sessions with this exercise in particular and go through most of the first chapter. And then depending on what I want to focus on, either range, flexibility, articulation, I'll go to that correlating chapter. But every exercise will generally touch on all your aspects of playing, which is what I really enjoy here. So let's get our instruments out. Hopefully you have your horn with you. Be trumpet, trombone, anything. This book was adapted from a trombone book, so if you have the trombone book, it's probably fairly similar. But we're just going to play the first few lines of this one just so you can see how it is. You'll need to be able to remove your mouthpiece. So if you have the freak plates on, make sure you've adjusted to make sure you can take your mouthpiece off pretty easily. And with these exercises, you have to really watch the metronome markings because they are there for a reason, and they're there to help you control your air and also help you, with articulations and stuff, move progressively through to be able to do it faster and faster. So this one specifically says metronome at 72. So I have my metronome at 72, and we're going to do just the first few lines just to see how this feels. And we're going to go on to discuss some more exercises. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Mouthpiece. Oop, that did not sound too great. We're going to put it back in and keep going. 2, 3. Last one. 3. 1, 2, 3. So that goes on for a couple of pages. Not much room there. But it's really great because when you're first starting to play in your day, you don't want it anything too high or too low. And the exercise gradually gets you to go lower in your range, gets your air moving. If you sound not super great, that's the whole point of warming up. You're not supposed to sound at your best, just warming up yourself. You're warming up your face. You're warming up your horn. My mouthpiece was a little bit cold there, so that was a little bit of a struggle. But this book is fantastic. If you can, I would highly recommend you check it out and make that purchase because I use it. I've used it for years and I continue to use it today because you can really change up your warm-ups each day with it. You don't have to play the same exercises all the time. You can flip around. And there's some duets at the back, which is really fantastic. So next, what I wanted to discuss was different types of warm-ups you can use that aren't necessarily designed for your instrument. I worked with a really great choral teacher when I was on my practicum during Teachers College, and William Brown, who was the choral teacher at Lawrence Park Collegiate in Toronto. And some of the warm-ups he'd be doing with his choirs, I was like, whoa, how would that translate to brass instruments? Then I thought back to when I was doing some vocal music as a student in high school and trying to remember some of those warm-ups I did and see how I could adapt them for my instrument. Because if they worked for the voice, I feel like they could probably be beneficial for me in regards to breathing and relaxation. So in the document there, we'll see something called a Bella Senora warm-up. Now, I think most high school students, if you were in choir or at music camp, you've probably come across this warm-up. And it's great. It's fun to do with kids. However, I've adapted it for euphonium because I think it was great, especially to help work on some scales. Now, I've only provided the major scales sheet, but you can easily do this for all your minor scales as well. It just starts at a comfortable note. So we don't necessarily have to start on the same note each day. You can start a little bit higher, a little bit lower, depends on how you feel that day. And you just go up by semitone. So let's start not at the basement. Let's not start at the E. Let's start at concert B flat, the second line of the bass clef staff. And the warm up when we're singing is Bella Senora. I'm not a singer, but that's how it goes. And so it's pretty much just your arpeggio, and then you're going down the major scale and then lip slur the octave. Now, what I want to emphasize with this warm up is you want to keep the same fingering when you do the octave lip slur. Don't adjust, because we want to be able to get that slur and not have to adjust the fingering. So I didn't put that in the arrangement, but you want to keep the same fingering when you're doing those lip slurs. So let's just try the first couple. Start on concert B flat. Our aim is to do this all in one breath, so I like to play them a little bit quicker, and also helps you get the air moving really quickly rather than just sitting on the note. So we'll probably go around this speed. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. And that just keeps going. I usually use this exercise as see where my range is at for today, because some days you're gonna have better days and some days you're not gonna have such great days. And if you want a quick warm up, this will get you through your whole range and also helps you work on your fingerings and your scales, especially if you go through all your minor scales as well. So that's kind of what I would do for a practice room session. When I'm looking at gigs or rehearsals, especially now that I started working when I was teaching, you don't have as much time in the day to sit down and warm up for 45 minutes. You only have maybe about 10 or 15 minutes when you get to the rehearsal or get to the gig and you're like, okay, you're tired from working all day. So what I like to use is at the bottom of the resource sheet, you'll see something called Warm Up from Hell. And we're not going to necessarily play through them, but I just wanted to show you these warm-ups, because these are great. I was introduced to these in my second year of undergrad by Sal Fertia at U of T, and I use these all the time still. I mostly just use when I'm wanting a quick warm up, check where just get the air moving really fast. I just go from the beginning to letter B, because that gets me through pretty much my whole mid upper range. And then I have another warm up I do for my lower range if I need to really focus on that for the day. But it's really quick. It's really great. And the great thing about these warm-ups is if you can't necessarily get through the whole thing, that's absolutely okay. The whole point is to not necessarily get through all of them in one day. You get to where you feel like you don't want to get to the point where you're hurting yourself or where you feel it's too much. You want to you're warming yourself up. So you're not going to empty yourself out completely in the warm up. You're going to see where you're at. If it feels good, then you stop and then you move on to something else. So that's why I really enjoy these warm ups. They're by Don Harry from Eastman. And if you have more questions about those, you can always feel free to reach out to me via Facebook or my website, and I can give you some more information on that. I'm not sure how much time I have left, so I'm just going to keep talking for a minute and just show you for finger exercises. So I also play a lot of baritone, and that means I don't have my fourth valve with me when I'm playing baritone because my baritone's only 3 valves. So to work on my third valve, especially my getting back to my 1 and 3 and my 1, 2, 3 combinations, I really had to work on my muscle memory because I completely lost it when I switched to my 4 valve euphonium because my fourth valve is on the side. Don't have to really worry about 1 and 3 or 1, 2, 3, or my pinky is not even in the question anymore. So again, thank you, Robert Miller. These little finger exercises have been honestly the best thing ever, especially when I'm just working on my computer at home because I can just fidget with them as well and just kind of strengthen my hand as I'm working. They're the VIA Pro Hands by Gripmaster. I put them in the resource list if you want to check them out. They're pretty inexpensive. They're about $12. And there's different strengths you can get. So this gray one is like the really light one, which is great if you're like a trumpet player or a cornet player because they kind of emulate that lighter spring. And this green one I have is extra light tension, but it's actually it's a lot more difficult than the gray one, which is great if you haven't played for a while and you really need to warm up those fingers. So I'm just going to show you a couple of finger exercises that you can do on your horn right now, and just emulate it with me. So we're going to put 1 and 3 down and hold it down, and we're just going to move our middle finger. Go as long as we can. You're going to feel a burn a little bit, like a nice burn in the tendon in your finger here. You're going to keep going. You're going to get a little bit tight, but you don't want to go again. You don't want to go to the point where it's actually painful. It's like you're working out and you get to that point where you can feel your muscles working a little bit harder and you want to stop before it hurts too much. Now we're going to hold down 2 and 3. This one would be easier because our first finger is always a little bit more agile. We're going to do our first finger. Again, you're going to go until it just gets a little bit tight. And then now we're going to put down 1 and 2. And this is going to be the hardest one because this finger is the weakest finger, just naturally. So we're going to try to get our third finger going. And if you do have a fourth valve with a pinky, these are great too because you can start working that pinky valve. I don't have to worry about that. But so when I use my fourth valve, I just kind of do this and practice with my fourth valve to get this finger going. And now these are hard. These are harder. So I have to kind of stabilize myself. We're going to go like this to get the agility. So we're going between 1 and 3 and second valve to get that agility going. Again, when I started playing more baritone, this was difficult because my third finger was so uncoordinated. And then we're going to do another one. We're going to have 1 and 2, and we're going to flip between 2 and 3. So the middle finger stays down. These are really great if you have a metronome too, if you want to time, really get 16th notes down. I can feel my third finger starting to burn a little bit already. And then you can even try going all 3 down. Again, it's just trying to get the coordination and also just getting your muscles worked up because the stronger they are, the easier it'll be to push the valves down. That's some finger exercise you can do. And these are great because I used to commute downtown all the time from the West End of Toronto. And I would just have this on me and look at my music and practice my music, like the fingerings with these. People kind of stare at me, but that's okay because it's really quiet. And again, you can just have them, if you work at a computer a lot, you just have them on your desk and you can kind of just fidget to working on the strength of your muscles in your fingers. But yeah, Pro Hands by Gripmaster, I highly recommend them. And I think that's my time, Carina. So I'll pass it over to Melissa.
All right. Thanks, Denise. That's awesome. I think I'm going to go get one. All right. So my name is Melissa. I'm a high school music teacher. So what I'm going to focus on today will essentially be specific for euphonium, getting air streams constant, because I think a lot of what we do in euphonium, it's usually a lot of lyrical legato kind of stuff that we tend to hold back on, I think. Whereas I think playing legato lines and playing melodic legato stuff just comes across, it's so much easier when you're really just using a lot of air, contrary to what sometimes we do is we hold back. But so I'm just going to kind of talk about that specific thing. So I'll start with mouthpiece stuff, which can really kind of help you with getting that air volume and focusing the stream, getting lots of air out straight across. So you can take your mouthpiece. For now, it doesn't have to be pitched. We're not going to aim for any specific notes. What we're going to try and do, just start with lower buzzes and go into higher buzzes. So what's going to really help with that is one of the main things I'm going to talk about today, or in this little 10-minute session. Instead of thinking high and low, think forward. Think fast forward air instead of high. So that will really help you direct the air. So I'm just going to take my mouthpiece and just do random low pitch, high pitch buzzing. So something like this. So think forward instead of high. So try, if you have your mouthpiece with you right now, try it again. Tank up like tons of air and think blowing tons of air out your mouthpiece. So we'll try it again. So lots of air breathing in. So you should feel like you're using every little bit of air that you have. If you keep doing this, if you incorporate it as a warm-up that takes, incorporating 5 or 10 minutes of mouthpiece buzzing might sound excessive, but it's really going to pay off in the long run, because you start building not only the muscles in your face, but you start building these air muscles. You might start feeling even lightheaded as you're doing even just your mouthpiece warm-ups, which is, you kind of want that, because if you're pushing yourself, then if you're pushing yourself to the point where you are getting lightheaded, then that threshold gets further and further, so then you can do it longer and longer. The other thing you can try and do, if you want to pitch it, like using actual notes, you can do that too. So you can do B flats, slurring up to a B flat and then down, and then going up step by step. But again, thinking forward instead of up and down. So if I have a B flat, you can actually pitch your mouthpiece buzzes as well. And then moving the pitch up and down, but still thinking forward with tons of air. And then you can go up semitones. And you can keep doing that. And you can build it into your routine where you're actually doing it in an entire octave or even more, so that you're actually so you start working on your high register, but still incorporating that core idea of thinking forward in a constant stream of air instead of up and down. And then when you're lowering your pitch, you're not holding back, you're still blowing straight through with the lower pitch. So I'll do that just one more time on a B flat to a higher one. So you're still thinking forward even when you're taking the pitch down. So you're incorporating that idea of a constant airstream. Like I said, you might feel a little lightheaded and tired after that. That's a good thing, because then it gets easier and easier, just like any kind of exercise, like lifting weights. If 10 pounds is heavy for you, you're curling 10 pound weights, it gets easier. And then eventually 10 pounds is nothing. And then 20 pounds is hard. And then 20 pounds becomes nothing. So because our bodies use so much muscle to play euphonium, if you're feeling tired after some of this, that's okay, because it does get easier. So kind of pushing yourself to be able to play these legato lines with a ton of air. So now, if to apply that to actual music, if you look in the PDF, the document that we shared with our resources, the piece I'm going to demonstrate that with is it's called Rhapsody for Euphonium by James Curnow. That's an excellent solo piece for euphonium. Those of you who might be in, doing a performance degree or any kind of music degree, as you probably are aware, a lot of the solo stuff that we play is borrowed from trombone repertoire or cello repertoire, and then we play euphonium. We play those on euphonium. So this one, Rhapsody for Euphonium, is obviously written for euphonium. So that's really cool because it does showcase a lot of what our instrument does specifically, not necessarily cello or trombone. It's only the first page that's in your in the PDF that we've shared. So it's not the whole piece, it's 2 pages. The whole piece would be 2 pages, but I'm just gonna refer to the very beginning of that to kind of incorporate this concept. So if you get your, maybe I'll just demonstrate first, and if you just look at the first line from the beginning to the first bar of A, it's rubato, meaning that we get to kind of play with the tempo. And as you can tell, the range does get pushed a little bit, starts kind of mid-high range and then does go up to a high A, and then it also goes to a low A, or 2 A's below that. So this is where this constant stream of air is really going to help us out, so we can get all these notes without cacking and stuff like that. So I'll just demonstrate the first little bit, and then we could all play eventually, or if you want to play along with this first bit, that's okay too. But I'm just going to kind of demonstrate what I've been talking about with tons of air and thinking forward for those high notes. Like, for example, the high A, I'm thinking forward, not up. Okay. So hopefully that sound came across through stream. The kind of cool thing with practicing this concept with this particular piece, as you can tell, there are breath marks. You only play a couple of bars, then you have to take a giant breath and then keep going. So why don't we, those of you who have euphonium with you right now, why don't we go ahead and try just that first beginning section to A, and because it's rubato, take your time with it. You can take huge breaths so you can get yourself there. So let's try that together. So we'll just do that beginning into the first bar of A. I'll just count in, but you can take the tempo however you like. 1, 2, 3. And then that piece does go on in that style. So if you want to continue working on that, then it does go back into an actual tempo that you can work on. But still with that piece, thinking constant airstream so that all the high notes come out clear, because it does cover quite a bit of a range. And then the other thing you could do, this is harder to do, but because it's harder, it makes you, it better equips you for the piece, is you can actually buzz that line or any other line, any music that you're working on, buzz it on your mouthpiece and get a feel for that forward stream with tons of air. And that'll make it easier when you actually put it to your horn. So for example, I'll just kind of demonstrate the first couple of bars on my mouthpiece, because you can actually pitch it and incorporate the same concept. So I'll just do the first little bit. So you might run out of air quicker when you're doing it on your mouthpiece. But then if you get used to that, like if you're buzzing tons of your music on your mouthpiece with that concept in mind, then when you add your mouthpiece back to the horn, it feels like it's easier. So it's been a kind of a huge, I've been playing euphonium for 20 years, and this concept just keeps coming back to me that I keep forgetting about. Tons of air, straight stream. Just like if you were a singer, there's a huge correlation between singing and playing brass. So those of you who are vocalists, if you're just saying something, it's one big breath and you sing it. You don't chop it up or hold back. It's usually one big stream of air. So apply that to euphonium as well. And that I think will really, that's really helped me out with conceptualizing what it should sound like, making it big. And then one more thing before I pass it off to Claire. When with this obviously this piece has tons of dynamics. I personally would practice this just big and loud. Get control over the intervals, get control over the intonation, practice playing it really big. And then once you have that control, then you can start incorporating the dynamics and making it more musical. So hopefully that was helpful. And I will now pass it off to Claire.
All right, so I'm back again. This time we're going to talk a little bit about practicing scales. So first, a little background. I joined the Canadian Armed Forces in 2007 as a musician, and before that time I had really neglected practicing my scales, as a lot of us brass players tend to do, I think. We tend to focus more on lip slurs and articulation and things like this, which are also very important, but it's really useful to also be comfortable knowing scales. It really helps with technique, sight reading. Pretty much anything technical that you're going to ever play in your life is going to be based off of scales. So if you have those down, it'll just make your life way easier in the long run. So in the Army, you need to know your scales really well, both for entrance auditions and as well for courses in order to be promoted. You also need to learn different pieces as well as sight reading for these tests. In 2013 and 2014, I was teaching low brass at the school for the Army in Borden, and I found that almost all of my students seemed to really struggle with scales compared to the other parts of the exam. So I'm going to give you 3 tips for scale practice. Tip number 1 is use a metronome, and make sure to set the metronome at a speed that is both challenging but manageable for you. Tip number 2 is make sure that you're playing each scale correctly more times than you're playing it wrong. Like, I would often see my students playing and they play the scale wrong many times in a row, and then eventually they get it right one time and they say, like, yes, sweet, got it right, I'm going to move to the next scale now. But that method is never going to work for improving your scales, because if you've played it 10 times wrong versus 1 time right, your muscle memory and your brain are going to remember all of the wrong attempts versus the one right one. So yeah, just make sure that you're doing right more than wrong, and to refer back to tip number 1. If you're playing them wrong like 10 times in a row, it probably means that you're playing it too quickly and you need to slow your metronome down a little bit. Tip number 3 is don't always play your scales in the same order. Like you just go by circle fifth every single time, adding a flat or sharp every time. But it's better to do them in a random order. I think that you learn them better that way. My favorite way to do this is to write each scale on a small piece of paper, put them in a hat, and then draw them at random. If you get it right on the first try, leave it. If not, it goes back in the hat until they're all gone. And then at the end, you can take any that you struggled with, so anything that took you more than 2 tries to get, and you can go over those ones a few times slowly to make sure that you really are enforcing playing them correctly. You can use this method for any sort of scale practice, so major, minor, chromatic, arpeggios, diminished seventh, anything. And the reason why it's good to do it this way is because if you're doing an audition or an exam, you need to be able to play the scale right on the first try. They're not going to give you 10 goes at it. Like for our military exams, we have 3 attempts per scale, but each one is marked out of 5 and you lose 1 point each attempt that you start. So it's really advantageous to be able to play them correctly on the first go. Also for our auditions and courses, we need to be able to play the scales with different articulation patterns, such as 2 slurred, like 2 tongue, 2 tongue, 2 slurred, 3 slurred, 1 tongued, etc. All kinds of different articulation patterns. But if you're trying to work on these things, make sure that you can play scales just with no articulation or all tongued to begin with, so that you're not having too many things to do all at once. Another tip is during the actual test or audition, make sure to take just a few seconds to think before starting each scale. Another thing that I often saw was as soon as I told the student which scale to play, they would start immediately, and you make a mistake within the first couple of notes because they hadn't really thought about what they were going to play. So if you just take like 3 or 4 seconds, think about like how many sharps and flats do I have, which articulation am I about to do, and just take time to like take a breath beforehand. It's going to go way better for you. So we'll just do like play like one quick example of like a scale with articulation. So we'll do B flat concert scale, 1 octave, 2 slurred, 2 tongued, and I'll put the metronome on just to keep us together. Quarter note equals 60 in 16th notes. So have 4 beats to think about it, and then we will start. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so that's kind of like the method that you can use for improving your scale practice, and that is it for me for now. So I'm going to pass it on to Carina.
Great, thank you so much. I'm learning so much in this session. It's awesome. So with 15 minutes to spare, I thought I have some really great things I'd like to share. I guess the first thing I wanted to say is, like, since we're a women's brass collective, it's like the perfect opportunity to promote publications from my female brass friends. So in the attached document that has all of the playing, all the music that we have prepared in advance, there's a page on the bottom called Slow Slurs. So this is one of the pages that comes from a book called Lip Slurs for Euphonium. It's hot off the press, that was recently published last year, co-authored by a friend of mine, Dr. Danielle Van Tynen, and Dr. Deanna Swoboda. So this particular exercise here, we want to make sure that we're, when you're doing lip flexibilities, we're talking about lip flexibilities, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. So we're doing lip flexibilities. You always want to start really slow. And I get it. Sometimes it's a little bit boring, and some people even like watch a TV show while they're doing their long tones. But there's a lot of things that you can actually think about when you are playing really slowly. So some questions you want to ask yourself is, how are you managing your air? Are you as relaxed as you possibly can be? Is the air driving? Are you leading with the air from one partial to the next? And is there consistency in the quality of sound every single time you play? So we'll do a couple of these exercises here, but this is basically the backbone and the skeletal structure that will lead you to actually having the ability to strengthen your muscles, your lip flexibilities and such, so that you can play them at a faster rate. So we're going to start at the recommended tempo, which is 66 beats per minute. I'm just going to turn down my mic gain here. And we'll just do the first two together. As written. And 1, 2, deep breath. Basically, with these lip slurs, a step ahead of this is wind patterning or buzzing. I love, Denise, that you shared that in your commute you do one of these. I'm usually stuck in traffic on our lovely Ontario 400 highway series. So what I actually do while I'm in traffic is do buzzing exercises. And I do a lot of these to kind of set myself up. The objective here is you want to be able to play your lip slurs really slowly, because if you can't play it at 60, how can you play it at 100, 120, or even at 160, right? So another thing you want to think about when you're doing your lip slur exercises is that you want to minimize the amount of movement going on in your face. So really, whenever you look at yourself in the mirror and you're playing lip slurs or lip flexibility exercises and you see a lot of chewing or jaw motion, that's an indication that you're not using enough air. So you want to think about those things as you're doing, progressive like lip slur exercises. So having said that, we're going to segue 30 pages down Danielle's book here. And just, try out something here. I'm just going to do the first exercise, expanding the lip slurs. And we'll just, it starts on B flat, da, 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 da. So just play it and see how it goes, and I'll see you at the end there, okay? And 1, 2, 3. So that was one. It's very exciting, and especially in the pandemic, sometimes you stick with your usual routine, and it gets stale sometimes. You want to create some opportunities and ask yourself, how can I freshen up my practice, and how can I cultivate some creativity and just use this in a different way, perhaps alternating rhythms, or even turning on a metronome with a drum kit track on the back, so that you kind of you've got a groove set up. I think would really just make a difference. For me, during this pandemic, I've just been so inspired by what my friends have been putting out. So I've just, So thought I'd share a great plug here, Lip Slurs for Euphonium. And then the next one is a publication that was written from my friend that inspires me so much. Her name is Misa Mead, Stephen Mead, this really famous euphonium player who's one of my teachers and mentors. His wife wrote or published something called the Misa's Technical Book 1. And this whole book just reminds me of my time spent with her practicing. So we have exercise number 40, which works on tonguing. The really cool thing, there's obviously tonguing exercises everywhere. Arbins is one thing that I can think of off the top of my head. The brass gym also has a lot of tongue coordination exercises. But what I really like about this particular exercise is the fact that you have single tongue followed by double tongue, and then also followed by triple tongue. So you have the opportunity to really assess how you're moving your air as it relates to the different tonguing techniques. So basically, I guess we'll start, I'm not sure what our audience is like. I'm making the assumption that we have a combination of high school students, university students, and people who are starting out in their careers. And then we have some top dogs that are also hanging out. So I'm going to say maybe perhaps 80 beats per minute for multiple tonguing is a good medium for everybody. So I'm just going to demonstrate a few of these exercises with regard to the tonguing here. And it's sorry, I only have a bass clef version. There is a treble clef version that is available. So it basically looks like this when you're doing your single tongue. At the very end of the exercise, you might notice that you'll become a little bit fatigued. And when that does happen, I'm just going to encourage you to keep on going. But instead of playing the full 16th notes, just stick with repeating the first beat. So it looks like this. And then same goes with double tonguing and same goes with triple tonguing. So what it should sound like is this, the end product. But if you do get tired, really the objective is to train your muscles, like working out, right? You want to make sure you're training yourself to actually get to the end there. And then you just stick to repeating the first beat until you have that endurance. Okay, so those are my demonstrations, and let's just play the first exercise in the key of B flat, and then we'll move on. So in the key, we're going to do 80 beats per minute. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So that was done as a single tongue. Now we're going to do it one more time, repeated double tongue. 1, 2, 3. All right, quick mental break, and we're going to switch subdivisions to triple tonguing. Da 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 da. Okay. 1, 2, ready. I got too excited and didn't adjust my mic, so hopefully that didn't ruin the audio on the listening end. And I think we're a little bit out of time, but my final share is that I've been doing a lot of technical studies from H.L. Clark. Those exercises are so great for working on your finger dexterities. If you have a fourth valve on your euphonium, or even it's really good practice to play all of the exercises with a 3-valve combination as well as a 4-valve. So I like to alternate that and challenge myself. And then also there is a book called Basics Plus that has actually taken some variations of the Clark studies and turned them into duets. So it's such a great tool when you want to play duets, or as a teaching tool as well. So I think that kind of is like a huge crash, like 1 hour let's jam as much as we can. But I wanted to kind of open up the floor to answer any questions and just have a conversation with the group and just, and then kind of just go from there. But the printout, the PDF that we had created and sent out in advance of this event just has some of excerpts from the pieces, and there are references. After this event, we will be posting some additional resources, so don't worry if you have, like I know that Claire had referenced some books, Denise as well, and so we'll provide that information. It'll be on the website for you. So can we not make me the main screen anymore? Thanks. Yay. So I'm just curious, have we had any questions in the chat here that we haven't answered yet? It looks like we're sorted out. So I think, thank you so much, the three of you, for sharing. What should we talk about now? The last 2 minutes of our session.
Well, can we touch on a little bit on the repertoire that we discussed before? Because I just wanted to mention when I was early in my playing career, I guess, in my undergrad anyway, a lot of euphonium repertoire, which is fantastic, was like severely out of my playing level, just because there wasn't as much repertoire as there are for, say, like trumpets or French horns. And a lot of the repertoire that was being written for people like Stephen Mead or David Childs or Nicholas Childs. And it was just really hard to find stuff. So like how we said, we could take warm-ups from different instruments or, different areas of music. I would recommend also checking out repertoire from other instruments as well. For example, I had to go through a massive embouchure change in my first year of undergrad, which means I couldn't really play anything higher than like an F above the bass clef staff. Which means like pretty much every single euphonium solo was out of question for me unless I brought a bunch of stuff down. So I checked out some trumpet music. I checked out some bass trombone music, tuba repertoire, some really nice melodic tuba repertoire available. That's in like middle euphonium range, which is really lovely. And also some French horn repertoire, which helped me work on my transposition as well. So I wouldn't say only play that because there is so much great euphonium stuff out there. But if you are a little bit stuck and you just want to learn something new in your practice session and just work on some different repertoire, check out some of those stuff because some of it's free domain now, especially stuff by Strauss or Haydn. You can just look up on IMSLP and, use that as well in your practice sessions if you're just wanting to explore some new music.
Well, with 1 minute left, I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's been really great hanging out, and I'm so inspired now. Like I feel like I have new bags, like new tricks in my bag, and something to look forward to motivate myself to continue practicing until we have someone to play for. I guess to conclude this session, I want to say that we are going to resume the session at 2:15, I believe. And the next session at 2:15 will feature Jessie Brooks as well as our guest presenter, Dr. Lise Valjoie. And we're going to be talking about the history and legacy of systemic racism in the music industry. So I do want to give you a disclaimer, like the collective, we're on the back end, we're trying something new. So we're going to actually end this video right now, but in about 15 minutes, we're going to start up a new live stream. So please stay tuned, and thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, thank you so much, Luis and Jessie, for your back end support. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Soon.
Thanks so much.